Welcome back to CTRL-ALT-DEV, the show for software founders, digital leaders, and curious business owners who want to make sense of tech, AI, and business without the hype. I'm Paul Rhodes.
And I'm Sean Sale, and this episode is number 27. It's one we promised you because last time our guest had to dash off to shoot mid-flow. Paul and I said exactly the same thing at the same time. We've got to get him back on the show.
Yeah, and so welcome back, Craig Hellen, Managing Director and Co-Founder of Bex Media, the Gloucestershire video production and motion graphics company that we dug into last time on episode 25. Craig, last time you literally kicked off the call to go and point a camera at something. Did you survive the shoot?
Which shoot, I guess is the question. No, I'm sure. I'm here to tell the tale. Yeah, no, it's been a busy few weeks in the interim, but lots of good stuff in the subjects we're going to talk about as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I really enjoyed the last conversation.
Awesome.
He's obviously so busy he doesn't even remember himself. Yeah. I love the Gloucestershire county there as well, Paul. You have to look that one up. But fantastic. But before we get into today's topic, we should probably mention the football, shouldn't we? The World Cup has finally kicked off, and like millions of others, I'm sure Paul's the same. We all sat down. Did you watch the game, Paul? Because you said you're going to go out and watch it.
Yeah, I went out with some friends. We went. I'm not drinking at the moment. I'm 40 days dry, so I've been going out. I've still been socialising, but I went to a pub with some friends, and we were joking that I have a habit when I play FIFA against them that I keep getting sent off, and literally we played Mexico South Africa the other night, and I got 2 people sent off, and I said I should probably have a bet on how I do in FIFA in terms of red cards, because I think it was unprecedented, wasn't it? It was like 3 red cards in the first game.
Well, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? Because there's quite a few different rules, isn't there? So I reckon there will be lots more red cards, and obviously it'll be interesting to see how the games flow as well.
Yeah.
But obviously, we've got the football on, but let's get into today's discussion because AI is creating just as much debate in business as football is around the world right now. And Craig, last time you were here on the podcast, we spent most of our time on the creative side of AI, voiceovers, content generation, the licensing, all those things people immediately think about when AI comes up. But what really caught my attention was that you seem to be using AI in a much deeper insight than in your business itself. I mean, most companies are bolting on lots of separate AI tools. I certainly am. But what I've seen, what you're doing is the complete opposite. You're using AI as an operating layer across finance, operations, production, content, and even things like SOPs, standard operating procedures. So today, I'd like to go behind the curtain a bit, if we can. Less about the output AI that creates, but more about how you're actually running the business day to day. How do all these systems fit together? Where does the information live in your business? And how are you using AI to reduce duplication, rework, and all the other inefficiencies that creep into a growing business like yours?
Yeah, but the way that I see this for us right now, because we have come from, my background is predominantly technical, but then with this sort of creative sort of line that goes through that, and because of that, I think I mentioned in our last conversation, we can see a technical thing that might add value to either us or our customers in some way, and it's often might be perceived as unfit for a company of our size or whatever, and we're pretty quick to be able to make a judgment of whether it's something that we need to look at and embrace, and very quick at getting up and running with it because of that technical background. And so although the creative side of what we do is so important and it's something that we really need to work on always, the technical understanding of systems and data and flow and management, that bit with AI we feel quite comfortable in, which I think is probably important, like comfort with being in that space and not being scared of certain pieces. There's regulation and then data security and stuff like that you need to be really aware of. We've all got our own risk profiles in those areas, but really we're not scared. And I think that's quite a defining piece of when you're thinking about that management change or the management experimentation. That a lot of people think, well, we've got this thing has been working the way it's been working for X amount of years. It's supported the business. It's underpinned the value. The customers have been predominantly happy. So why are we changing it? And I think that question is sometimes not answered quick enough. And in this world of AI and change, I think that question is heightened.
I think what you've just touched on there as well is really interesting, because what I was thinking of immediately is ultimately the adoption of AI comes from the top, is what I've experienced. So it's about leadership and it's about culture. And so what you've described is, as a founder, you know how important and integral systems are to your business. So therefore, you've gone 2 feet first, haven't you? You've really embraced it. And the conversations we've had off this podcast, and the reason you're on is because there's so much value, is every time we talk about the next thing you've been working on and all this. The polar opposite exists in many businesses today, where they're almost at a stage of paralysis, or almost to a level denial. Like they think it's a bubble that's about to burst, or they describe it as like a train that they'll jump on at some point in the future. Whereas the competitive advantage you're losing out on is huge, because there's going to be a gulf between, those that use AI for everything in their business and those that don't. And it doesn't.
I think there's a really interesting point about our view on it as well, because we run companies, service companies with lots of different clients.
Yeah,
and you start to see, because in small business, that term of like outside looking in, inside looking out, I think is sometimes helpful to look at. It's like, we've done it our way, but actually, what's the market doing? What's other people? Look at what people are doing around us. Look at and when you start having that lens on your client activity, sometimes you're impressed and you can take those ideas, and that's wonderful. Sometimes you're really worried, because you're seeing maybe in a larger client, maybe in multi-site, plus 200 staff client, you're seeing either significant misalignment and disruption, because it's really hard to manage change, or you're seeing just a lack of awareness across the board, and probably someone somewhere has been given the champion of AI within that large organization or within that sub-team. And they then, there's a big question about whether they're invested in it from a kind of excitement point of view, which I think is a huge thing. It's like, am I excited about this, or am I being given a task which I hate? And there's a very, very big question about how that information then gets out to the teams and is managed, and that activity managed that we spoke about last time. But that's when you're looking at your clients and you're looking, well, how, in your position, I mean, Paul, you've got a business of doing this right now.
Yeah.
And I sometimes feel really kind of disabled, because I'm going like, I'm seeing problems, I'm seeing risks for long-term business sustainability in some people that we work with, but you're not in a position to do anything and help them, because ultimately you're trying to get great LTV, lifetime value,
yes,
bullshit bingo, out of your clients. So if you're then seeing them not necessarily, in your opinion, taking this to heart, that has to question whether they're a good client for you ongoing. And that's a tricky one to deal with, right?
Yeah, I also think, and this probably sounds, this is off the top of my head, so I'm totally ad-libbing, but you can't fix everyone. No. You just can't. And I don't think it does determine whether they're an ideal client or not. What makes people an ideal client for me is, like, obviously there's money involved. Do they pay, and do they pay on time? There's, are they good people? Are they doing something that I believe in and we can help them with? And basically communication. You can work with great teams. Do they have AI adopted or not? Doesn't really matter. Do you see what I'm getting? So I get there's that thing of like, yes, there's a pain to, they could be doing it better. But that's probably been the case of businesses you've worked with.
Yeah,
it's just more acute, isn't it? You would have worked with
more
businesses
acute,
in the
yes,
past.
You're right.
It's more acute now because we can look through the same lens. But it's a bit like, you might have worked with a company 20 years ago and they don't have a website. And you'd be like, oh, guys, you just need a website. Do you know what I mean? It's just like everybody's got a website. And then mobile apps came along, and it's like there's been certain waves, social media. And I think you can't fix everyone. And it's a really important thing to manage your own energy as well, because you would actually burn out trying to fix all of your clients' adoption of AI.
Yeah.
Where, especially if they don't want it, you can take a horse to water. You can't make
I think
it drink.
it's hard. You mentioned belief in them, and it's really hard when you see a product or an offer for the market that we've got a few of these clients where you're so committed because what they've got, you believe in.
Yeah.
And then when you see that what they've got is good and has been good for however long you've worked with them, and they've proven it, they've changed, they've innovated, all this great stuff that we absolutely get on board with, and then you see that, but you also see a lack of either willingness or time. A lot of it's time, let's be honest. To be able to get into it, but then you see, then you sort of play that forward in your head. It's like, oh my goodness, this great thing, or these great people, or this great organization that is, in your opinion, is doing wonderful things, value added wonderful things, but then you play it forward because of that lack, and you're like, oh, where does this go?
I think as well.
I was going to say, just interjecting because I'm thinking. So Craig, without naming the company, give me an example where you've seen something and you've got
like an industry.
Yeah, an industry.
Yeah, I mean, we work a lot in technical and engineering. Weirdly, this is where I've seen it most. But it's because some of the companies that we run with in technical engineering are sort of middle-sized companies. They're not massive, but middle-sized companies. But to be honest, even some of the massive ones, they really struggle. And I don't know whether that's the technical mindset or whatever the thing is within those sorts of organizations. But then that's really where I see the majority of this problem. And you kind of know that there's something going misaligned here. I don't really see it, but I think maybe because the problems that and the systems and all that stuff that they've got to do to deliver a great product in the inverted commas traditional roles has been very carefully set up over the years, and that knowledge behind it is backed by degrees, backed by industry experience, backed by all this stuff that leads to a point where they're delivering value in that initial state. Now, changing that into the AI context is incredibly involved because there are so many dependencies. So I think maybe there's a shade of that, but you're still itching. There's still an itch.
Yeah, I think what I was going to suggest was, and going back to your ideal, clients scenario, in terms of conversation you just said, definitely have the conversation. So don't shy away from it. So I think you'd be doing your clients a disservice if you weren't kind of gently educating them. And then the classic thing is, which we'll go on to in this episode, and I know it's a totally different, it's almost stupid of me to say it, but is be the change. So if you improve your service and you do certain things that now delight your customers that you never had the bandwidth and capacity to do, they will naturally start to ask questions, and we've experienced that.
Yes.
So we've had a decade. We've had a decade worth of, our systems and processes very manual. Yes, we automated a lot with coding and stuff, but still, when I look back now to what AI lifts and the tasks that it completes for us, we were Luddites, really. We really didn't crack systems and processes. Now, all of our energy goes into just constantly reviewing, and we talked about lean in a previous episode. It's that constant lens of what's a waste in the business, where are we losing time, or energy is more important to me than anything else. If it doesn't energize me, why on earth are we doing it, and why would I pay somebody else if it doesn't energize them. So there are tasks that lights up other people. You know, some people get lit up by admin, don't they? And that's what they're there.
Yeah.
You know, that's where they found their.
I get lit up by admin if you improve it. I don't care about it when
exactly.
you improve, but if you improve it, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, let's steer that topic down a bit further then. So you talk about lean then, Paul. Do you want to give a best definition for our listeners as to what lean is? Because it was something.
Well, I think I'm going to pass the hot potato here, and I'm going to give it straight back over to. I'm going to hit a defensive shot and hit it towards Craig. Go on then, Craig.
I'm a tennis lover. I'll watch the footy, but in that opening conversation, I was thinking I'm woefully underqualified in this room right
now. I'd score an own goal if I attempted to talk about lean.
So lean as a definition, I am going to butcher this. I am like 2 years deep in this. I mean, I learned a little bit at uni, but did not apply it. Had this watershed moment a couple of years back, and have been working very hard to understand it first and implement it, and it's a constant journey, and it's a bit of a battle as well. But you see that it's very similar to AI, I think, in some ways, from a kind of satisfaction point of view, because there are these methods within lean, and some work in one context in a slightly different way to another context, but ultimately it comes down to culture. It comes down to continuous improvement, and that culture of continuous improvement as a thing is kind of the bottle of lean. We are all lean in our own ways. We all make, businesses wouldn't generate any money ever if you weren't having some sort of improvement, because then you wouldn't deliver any other value. You wouldn't deliver anything. So yeah, I mean, it's you've got this cult of lean, which I'm probably a paid up member for now. But like, but we all do it. It's just what it does is it gives it a framework and some ways to communicate it, and kind of a lot of it's like a business direction, giving people a framework, a vehicle to do those improvements and to be recognized for those improvements, and to be allowed to think to improve. That's kind of how I see lean. It's predominantly referenced in a manufacturing context. A lot of the time, a lot of manufacturers will either they'll implement lean or they'll get a lean consultant in, which I think is sometimes a very, very dangerous thing from what I've been reading. Because yes, the lean consultant will say, do this, and then bugger off. And it's like, yeah, but the culture's not.
Because it was methodology from, was it Toyota? I think.
Yeah, well, again, you could go back as far as the Egyptians and right, say that they were lean, but the modern context is probably from Toyota. The TMS, Toyota manufacturing system, is kind of where that's based. And phrase, that Toyota manufacturing, it locks it in manufacturing. So when people see that, they associate that back to that, and actually it's nothing really to do with that. There's lots of great stuff that you can do with it elsewhere.
And there's the stuff that I've observed over the years when they talk about lean, because my experience of lean is very much Lean Startup by Eric Ries, and Steve Blank is like a pioneer of it as well. In software, it's very much like in the traditional sense of manufacturing, you've got concepts like just in time, and you've got like just the basic concept of, if you're a machine operator and you need certain tools, and every time you need to go and get the tool, you have to walk across the warehouse and come back. There's really simple ways that you can make sure the tool's available to hand and structured and organized. So you apply, like the way it's applied in software is lean's a lot more about build less, test ideas. It's about not wasting. So the traditional methods that I saw growing up when I was a coder in employment was, we would do classic waterfall, and we would go to a client and we will build out a spec, and that spec was almost like, just tell us everything you want. And then we would go away and say it'd take a year, and it'd take 3 years, and we wouldn't deliver what they wanted, because it was like we were building a cathedral, is how I always described it. Whereas lean in software is really questioning, do you need that now? Do you need that feature to prove or validate the idea? So you end up with this thing of like the minimum viable product is part of lean in software, which is actually build the absolute minimum thing you need to test your idea, And when you're testing a software idea, whether it be an internal thing or an external SaaS product, there's other factors than just the code. There's like, if you look at a product that's trying to launch, you've got sales, you've got marketing. You've got, do you understand the market? Do you know the messaging that resonates with them? Do you know the media where they hang out, and all that kind of business planning and strategy? You can simplify it all down by just building out a test. So lean in software is about proving hypotheses or disproving them, and success is when you invalidate an assumption. So the way it works with the lean startup is phenomenal. If you are building something from scratch, and there's never been more software developed than there will be this year, and by non-developers, you know, if they skip, if you take Vibe Coders, for instance, we ran a workshop this week. If you skip the important process of just planning out what the definition of done is, and then also saying, is that really done, or is there a half product in there where you could get to market quicker and prove your ideas? If you skip that entire step, what you end up doing in tools like Replit is just constantly re-engineering. You didn't do the planning up front. Over-engineering.
It's one of the ways. So
it's the waste.
I hasten to. I have looked up the waste because I keep on getting asked. I always forget at least 2 of the 8 wastes of lean, but they are, you know, defects, overproduction, waiting, underutilization of talent, transportation, inventory, motion, and overprocessing. So you look at that in that AI, in the AI context. Overproduction, huge. Excess processing, huge. And unutilization of talent, huge.
I think that's the biggest one. I think that is the biggest one, because what we're observing is, and we'll get on to like the future of work, but what we're observing a lot is people are saying, I want to grow 20% this year and I want to do it with the same head count. That's the general message from businesses that I'm talking to. The cost of employing a human being now is so expensive. We won't get into labor, but but effectively, like, it's never been more expensive than ever to employ somebody. So what they're doing is they're not necessarily making redundancies. They're saying, I've done this, I employed you for this role, and you've done that role really well. You're a good team member. You've been really, but you're capable of so much more. If I can remove 80% of the grunt work out of your role, how can you help me to achieve this 20% growth? And people's roles are changing as a direct result. I am personally not seeing job losses at all. I am seeing people being hired for new roles or new parts of the business. But what I'm experiencing is...
But you're not seeing replacements.
No, I'm not seeing replacements. Exactly.
The big thing is, like, these large organizations, they are working on natural attrition. So that you have that people going, and they're not needing to replace. So the disruption is still there. It's just being clouded in attrition.
Yeah. And I think we've seen firsthand, this is a really good testament to it, is we went into a business, we looked at an operational bottleneck. That operational bottleneck was clear that they were doing something that they were employed to do, and it was a 40-hour work week, right? And they did it every day religiously. And then as a result of just looking, a bit like lean, looking at the process and what needs to be done, that complete role was gone. They didn't need it anymore. Like, literally, AI does the triage, and somebody else within the department now does 10% of their time overseeing that. So what they did is they just put that person, and they almost did like a skills analysis and worked out she was amazing with people. And so they put her into a kind of more of a natural people role in sales and marketing, and she's absolutely flying. And so, she's already embedded into the culture. She already knows what the company stands for and the vision, and she can help them get there faster because she's doing the stuff that only a human being can do, which is build relationships and build trust with their suppliers and clients. And it's like, that's where we're seeing that. But I think the flexibility from an employee needs to be, not my job, is you won't last in a job. If you look at things now and you go, I turn up on time and I do my job, I think you're in a very, very scary place, because the thing that you're employed to do is change.
The ones that will surface will be the ones that carefully innovate. I think carefully innovate because we've all been on the vibe code side of things, where, you get excited. I mean, the 3 a.m. finishes when you're going, oh, I just need to do that last little bit. But the careful innovation, I think, is a very, very high ceiling for people if they are in a current role and they want to progress and show themselves.
So for the mere mortal like me, then, so talk about lean. So the waste isn't the meeting. The waste is all the work we do after the meeting, because it's the information and what it captures and put it in the usual usable format. Is that what you're suggesting?
There's the waste of work is either work caused by having defects. So you then get a customer that phones up that then accelerates a complaints procedure that then the waste of work is or realizing you've done it wrong, or someone you're quality catching and is like, oh yeah, I've got to then redo it. So then you've got redos and stuff. You've got the waste of overdoing something. So we all love to over deliver, and if it over delivers, so what I look at is that if it over delivers on what the client is going to be delighted by, and you have a financial model or method behind that piece of work that allows you to do that and make money, crack on. But if you over deliver or over produce on something that doesn't do that, who gives it? So there's things like that as well. But one thing I wanted to just give a quick example for, because we started Lean before we really got into AI, although we were all playing with it. But what it does is it gives a really, I think I mentioned our last in chat, it gives a really good vehicle to then allow AI to be done in what I think is a really directed right way, because you've got delighting the customer at the end of all of this, and then lots of different steps on the way to do that within that lean method. At having those steps and those kind of methods or frameworks through lean allow that AI drop-in to be so much better directed. So every time you think, oh, I'm going to do this with AI, think about how that fits within the lean structure. Because because otherwise, and we're all the same here, that you get overwhelmed as well. And it actually really helps you not get overwhelmed, even from a bloody mental health perspective.
Yeah,
sleeping, okay, does this fit? Okay, yes. How are the ways we're going to check the value here? This, and this. We're pulling that from the lean and from that and continuous improvement. And does it add enough value to warrant the thing? Has it proven its value outside of the automated context? All that sort of stuff, which is all there first from lean, and then you can then use it. So it's like that power behind it, and not a scattergun. That has been so helpful for me as a kind of guide. I want to give one example of a particular thing which I'm super proud of. We get out of socials, and we do socials, and for my sins, I jump on a camera and I talk to the camera about what we do, why we're doing it, whatever the marketing stuff that we need to produce. And we're doing a bunch of stuff with, which I think we touched on last time, with how we kind of produce that. But I want to touch on the physical world of the studio that we did, because I was doing lean, can see waste. Every time we go into and do a social, or in the old days, so a year ago or so, you're like, okay, so we've got a separate room for this. We film there each time. Each time we film, we are spending 2 hours to get the room right. 2 hours. And so what that means is that you're in a marketing concept, and the way we want to go out in marketing is, we want to be reactive, and we want to allow stuff to flow and feel, and flow is a big part of lean as well. Like, how can we allow that flow out, stop putting the barriers in? So I took it from the AI context with this. I presented it the problem. But this is in the early LLM days. Just presented the problem, and then images of the studio. So this is super low bar from a kind of no agentic perspective on this one, and but the result in the physical world is that it used those principles to then guide me and my thoughts around how we make that space work better in that for that thing. And the result, we've gone from 2 hours to 2 minutes, and with a very low cost outlay, right? We're talking a few £100. And obviously there's a load of extra improvements I'm always thinking about, because I can take that down to a minute, but you're questioning your value at that point. But that process of going, okay, lean there, problem here, see waste, AI here, please help, context, problem, 2 minutes. It's such a beautiful example of a straight line of a fix that really made, and I think everyone needs to experience that aha. And we're back to what we were talking about earlier with businesses. But yeah, that was. But it's such a dumb use in this new world, but it's actually made a huge difference.
And I guess for the listener who's like, okay, this sounds amazing, I can see the impact on your business, Craig. So therefore, how could I get started? I guess the questions that are going through my head are, number one, is there a text? Is there something that's like a really good reference as like a starter for 10? I don't know, a book they could get off Amazon. What have you used as your guiding principle?
That's what I was going to say, that one.
Yeah. And then the second one was... Go on, you can answer that one, then I'll ask my next question. Or is there not? Is the answer?
There is. So the lean side, I think that's I didn't get on with the book that everyone references, which is called 2 Second Lean by Paul Akers, which is a wonderful book, I'm sure, but I didn't get on with it because for whatever reason. There's great stuff in there, and everyone references it, and that's wonderful. I'm not taking anything away from that book, but it just didn't really speak in my way. The thing that I got was, or the thing that the penny drop was a podcast by a wonderful bloke called Ryan Tierney, I believe is Tierney. Podcast called Lean Made Simple, and him and Paul Akers are like that anyway. But just the way that he frames it. He runs a manufacturing business, and now he's bought a separate thing to do the lean journey at a different business. But the way that he frames it and brings it into much more easy to understand real world context, that's the thing that got me. So yeah, I would thoroughly recommend, if you're interested in lean, have a look at that book, 2 Second Lean. And then, but also straight out to Ryan, and yeah, he's just.
I guess it's that it's making it relatable, isn't it? If somebody, and again, like we live in a world now where if your medium that you pursue information is a textbook, if it's like YouTube videos, if it's podcasts, it's just amazing. Like information is so accessible. And then the second thing I was going to say is, like, if somebody's listening as a total beginner. One thing that they could do is effectively build an AI brain or an AI expert that guides them through it. So you described, like you're fully trained up and stuff, and you'll look at a problem and you'll start to go into like the lean methodology, and you'll look at it through that lens to see ultimately, is it worthwhile to execute? For somebody who's totally beginning, one of the massive advantages you can do right now, you still need to understand the principles. You need to understand and become an expert. You can't skip that training. But what you can definitely do is help yourself with some guardrails so that you use something like a GPT, or you create a gem in Gemini, or you create a notebook LM, and it's very easy to load it with context. Now, if it was me doing it today, just for the listener being totally honest, I would go to Claude Cowork, I would create a project, I would prompt it with instructions to say, you are an expert in lean, use these kind of like principles, load into it as much information as I possibly could. And then it's my go-to place to say, right, I am now looking at how GGA estimate. Can you help me with a waste exercise? And the key to it is to say, ask me a series of questions. Don't do single shot prompting. Get it to have a conversation with you. And my experiences in any new subject that you're trying to master, the more you use it, the better you get. It's as simple as that. So the barrier for a lot of listeners could be, yeah, but I don't know enough about lean, and how do I get started?
Well, that's exactly
to get started. Yeah.
That's what I would say. But it's interesting. I like what you've just said there about using Claude in that way, because I suppose, as you say, the GPT will know about the lean methodology anyway. And then would you then say, Paul, would you say to it, this is a typical waste that I see in our business in Green Gorilla Apps? And would you then ask it then for...
Yeah, so
I've done it where you just give it a business area.
Yeah.
So you go high level. You say this is what we believe in from a lean perspective. But I want to focus on, as you said, accounting or something like that. So you don't tell it what you're doing yet. But
so
I get it
effectively. Yeah. So effectively, every business has like 9 core departments, don't they? 9 core functions. So you'd look at it at the department level. So in that thing, then, Sean, going back to your question, what I would personally do then is I would say, right, I'm going to look at sales. That's what you're saying, isn't it, Craig? So I would build my little, when I'm saying build it, like 20 minutes, you could build an AI brain in whatever LLM tool you choose to use, right, and give it context. Then we go back to the fundamental principle of this 10-80-10. So I would spend 10% of my time and the grunt work compiling links to Notion to all the things that talk about our current sales process, right? So I would try and give it, what people do is go, oh, help me with sales in my business. Here's my website. It doesn't know anything. Like if you gave a human being that task, you're going to get a pretty woeful output. But if you sit with the human being and you give them 2 hours of your time and they can ask you questions, interview style, they're going to get a hell of a lot more information. So one of the things, I'm not saying it would say this, but it might go, well, actually, Paul, I've looked at all your resources. I'm going to ask you a load of questions. And one of the ways I found is your initial call is 45 minutes. That's a lot to ask somebody for. They might say, all the basics of sales are not really lean, but it's like a waste is.
Yeah.
Equally, you could be wasting 45 minutes of your diary with a non-qualified prospect. So why don't you do a 15-minute phone call? Those sorts of things where it's looking at time, it's looking at over, under-resourced capacity, all this sort of things. And I think the advice that Craig just gave to take it at department level is really good. But I think you have to, when you use AI, you have to think interview style. You have to think, if you went and sat down with a lean consultant in a coffee shop, what would they ask you? And when you say to an AI, ask me a series of questions, 9 times out of 10, it will knock you for 6 because it'll ask you questions you haven't even thought about. So, and that's where it acts as a real it can act as a real mentor. Now, it always comes with a caveat of you still need to be an expert. You still need to understand if what it's telling you is correct. But 80% of the time, you will get gold out of it. And you have to make the decision about what to do. You can't just go into it and say, right, here's lean. Here's my sales process. Now tell me exactly what to do. I absolve all responsibility and I'll just go and get somebody to execute. And then I'll moan when it doesn't make any difference.
Because you just and you can't give it ultimate context yet. So there's always things that you will have that will give you a nod or a shake on some of the things that it comes back with. I'm but I think if you're really just starting out, Claude, whichever one you use, can you ask me can you come up with 40 questions to allow you to get a full understanding of my business? I'm going to give you 2 hours of my time.
Yeah,
that is a fantastic exercise. It's one I thought about recently. As I was like, I don't know if you guys have ever had this, but have you ever had the thought of like, God, if I started my business tomorrow, what it would look like, from scratch? Yeah. So I thought about recently on a walk, I thought about doing that exercise, exactly what you just said. I thought I'll sit in front of it for 90 minutes. It'll take loads of days, but I'll do 90 minutes a day and I would just get it to interview me as to like what I think right now, we service, who we're, resource with everything, and start with literally this blank page of this is Green Gorilla Automation. And this is what we're doing, and kind of go from vision all the way down every department, You know, who's responsible for what, why that department even exists, what its purpose is, all this sort of stuff. And I guarantee if I invested the time to do that, the output would be very different from what we do today. Does that make sense?
And you know what? And you know what? I mean, I've not done that either. Like, we should all go. Well, it should be the first action after this chat.
We all talk about training, don't we? We talk about training.
Exactly.
People in our business. Why are we not training the GPTs to understand? I mean, we all do our prompting.
There are so many outputs of that. There are so many outputs of that. Why the bloody hell haven't we done that?
And we've also touched on what we're all doing. And this is so like we've done an episode. I think it's one of the first episodes we did, wasn't it, Sean? Was about this concept of the AI brain, something that's all knowing. But it's knowing about all the processes of how we used to do it. So when we've talked about clients who've got like decades old processes, even if you build an AI brain today, it's almost stuck in the old way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's not the new like innovative way. And I think you have to keep your documentation up to date. So it's almost like I'd like to build GGR on a fag packet, basically. I'd like to make it so simple.
Yeah, the keeping the information up to date, but the other outputs of what that brain can do, you know, are huge. Well, we all forget shit for a first start thing, but like the ability to give new staff onboarding or what, and you know, we're seeing this. We've taken somebody on recently, and we use Monday as a home for our business online. So all the management is done through that. So when we first start with Lean, we were putting these SOPs together and putting them in. Then we can create the custom GPT to then pull the SOPs in a consistent format based upon transcripts. So that was one of the early things we did, and that started working really nicely. So we're able to then increase the output of useful SOPs with a method which is Lean, using AI and using that custom. But then you spin that forward and you start going to a point where we now have a new staff member, and I'm now seeing the benefits, and I'm seeing the benefits myself. There'll be things that we all do every now and again where you go like, how do I do it? I've got one at the moment where we've got to do a webinar recording. There's a very particular way to make sure that we've got all the audio routed right, we've got the right backup systems involved, all that good stuff. That allows us the level of control afterwards in post to be able to work with it in the way that we need to. But that's like, you know, setting up MIDI and right. So I then use that to build that SOP. I've just used it again, but then I went in this again, and you know, that continuous improvement is like, well, now I've got co-work. Now I've got co-work. So I then fed it that SOP. And I say, please, can you do this?
Okay, so basically, for the listener and me being a complete Nathaniel, you are linking Claude up to Monday.com, putting in the SOPs in that way. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, and you've got to have a central store of right. Yeah, I think that's something which is often the thing. So be that central store of right within Claude, be that central store of right, but somewhere which is referenced. Now, I can
tell you where we put ours, just for context. So we're in Google Land. So all of our like single source of truth is Google Drive. Mm-hmm. And then we use different tools to create things. So for instance, like we use Notion, has like entire pages and sub pages of like every single department in the business with their SOPs. But what we do is we use that as the working draft. And we make changes and stuff all the time. But then what we do is we push it all out to Google Drive. So it's almost like version controlled at that point. If it's on Google Drive, it's like the approved draft. But then what the beauty is if you're using tools like Claude Co-work, it can connect to Google Drive, but so can Notebook. So that's why we did it, is we were originally uploading our, documents straight to Notebook, but then Claude couldn't read the same document. We had to upload it again individually. So we decided that we'd make Claude the single source of truth, which means we just only have to replace that one document with versions. Right. And all of a sudden I can have, unlimited agentic AIs talking to this one source of truth. So I think what you were just describing there, just to give a bit more context of like that's what we're doing. I mean, everything changes every 3 months, but that's what we're doing right now.
That all of that there can be housed in one particular part, you know, a bit of lean. What you need, where you need it, when you need it. Downstairs, I've got a bin, a beautiful Brabantia bin, guys. Honestly, you can't. If you were like bins, you'd love this bin. We used to do some work for Brabantia back in the day, and we got a freebie. I'm very happy about it because it fits perfectly in this little bit underneath my counter, which, you know, we moved in, and the bin was like, you know, millimeter perfect, beautiful, very satisfying. But when we're putting, and then, you know, did this lean stuff, and I came home one day, and I like looking at it, go, where are bin bags? My bin bags are in the cupboard under the sink. Where's my bin? 3 meters that way. Cool. And then you look at the alcove and you go, wow, wait a minute. And then you look underneath, there's a bit of space between that. There's a little triangle because it flips up like that. So there's a little triangle of space, even when it's flipped up, that you don't need. So then you go down to the basement and you pull out a bit of skirting board and you get 2 little right angle brackets and you mount it up in, and it's got dodgy as anything. But it just holds, and then it's a tiny little shelf just right for those bin bags.
So I have a different picture. I have a picture of you with a big black ball with like the chalk outline of the bin bags. You know, like they have in prisons.
I've not got a shadow board for bin bags yet. No, but that when you're talking about those documents, and it makes me question whilst we're talking, because what you need where you need it is such a great thing, because it's a great waste reduction method, and it's so physical and in your space, and as soon as you get it, it's like cool. But then you spin that into a digital context, and we went with the SOP method. We've been doing some great stuff there. And then you go, okay, well, the reason we're doing this in Monday is because we want it and there's again another lean cultish phrase, at the Gemba, at the workplace, at your workbench. So our workbench is a management system. We need the SOPs where we're going to be needing to do the process. The process is in the management system, therefore the SOP should be right there. So I'm not clicking away from it to get to my knowledge if I need it. So that process where we're spinning into the kind of the Claude agentic kind of tool set, I think what you're doing there, Paul, is really good. And I'm now considering if we need to really switch up that, because I'm now inside our Claude windows all the time, rather than being in Monday, because Monday is still great for a database. So Monday, for the listeners that don't know, it's a management platform. I'm sure everybody's been advertised if I've got very healthy advertising budget, but but the reason that we chose it originally, weirdly, was kind of leany even before we got into that, is because we got frustrated with all the project management systems that were out there at the time. This is 7, 8, 9 years ago. You buy one, you try and use it. Some of the features are great, then you hit a wall and you can't use it in the way you want to use it. Monday's way more flexible. You can build what you need, and that's the way we took it. But back to your point about having those accounts, so those business areas, so we try and keep that taxonomy through everything as well. So that's our brain of Monday and projects and everything. We've got fire alarm schedules. We've got all this stuff is all there. That's where that's why everything is there.
So for a founder listening who's drowning in 15 AI tabs, and we're all guilty of having different tabs to have different conversations. So what's the first thing they should join up then, from your point of view?
Well, it depends where where your source of truth is at the moment. I'd suggest I'd look at that first. Does that work?
Yeah.
Does that feel good? Does it have the ability to connect? And that is probably the biggest question to ask at the moment. So if we're talking about people and service providers in people, and we ask those questions of how are you using AI, I'm sure you guys do that when you're looking at service providers nowadays. How are you doing it? What are you doing? Because if the answer is weak or not using, I'm questioning things then.
We've got rid of subscriptions specifically because they don't have an AI connectivity, and the method of AI connectivity is MCPs, and it's only an acronym, but yeah, just leaning into what you just said, 100%. We've got rid of probably about $5,000 worth of software over the last 6 months just because I can't interchange data with it, and so it's pointless.
Yeah. So yours, Paul, is Notion. Claude.
Yeah, so Monday.com for Craig is my Notion. My Notion does databases, project management, everything that is like operational in GGA, playbooks with videos in on Loom, that sort of thing. It's all in Notion. And then we just use Google Drive as our kind of like almost the gold master versions of stuff. So it connects.
We're the same.
Because, you can't connect, and one of the reasons is you can't connect Notebook LMs to Notion directly, but I wasn't going to get rid of Notion because of that. But Claude can connect to both, and then equally Notebook can connect to Google Drive, and then Gemini, because we get that as well, that can connect to Google Drive. So it was like, okay, they're not perfect with Notion, but Notion is invaluable to me. I mean, if there's one, I've looked multiple times to go, is it really just document management? But you know how important like UX is, and just comfort and use on a mobile phone and all this sort of stuff. It's just, to me, it's effortless.
Well,
so I'm a huge fan of Notion.
As soon as a new system comes out, which is wonderful for whatever reason, it's wonderful. If it doesn't have that connection, because there is so much retraining, and again, that's one of the founding reasons that we took Monday to start with, is because we knew it had the flexibility to build things, and we'd proven that, and then we started opening up. So when we look at, a good example would be like a health and safety management system, right? So you can buy one of those. It's quite expensive, very compliant. You look at that, you go like, well, firstly, the connection between that and Monday doesn't exist. So you'd have to build all the make stuff, all that other stuff around that. So there's time and effort there. But then you go, well, how much of this do we really need to be compliant and to make sure our staff are safe? We need this bit. We don't need all the extra features. We just can we build that in Monday? Yeah. Okay. Right. Well, that's a big value that we're not going to have to do this. We're regulatory obligated to do something, and we're also morally obligated from a people perspective to do something. So your value then goes up. So it's like kind of questioning of value at that point. So therefore, you invest into building that in Monday. That's the old context, and that's what we've been doing. Spin that into, and I think having that. Some of the things about audit trails, boring stuff, but the audit trail stuff within AI is bleh, right? I think someone's going to fix that at some point. But the audit, so having the home for that and how people you can see who's done what. Monday is great for that. I'm sure Notion is probably quite good for that as well. I don't.
Yeah, exactly. It's got ultimately you got document version history, haven't you? So you won't necessarily have the audit trail of like the individual conversations that happened in the LLM, but you have the changes to the document, who changed it, when it was changed, comments, all that sort of stuff. I mean, the one thing you just touched on there that I've definitely experienced and is a number one thing, underlying reason people talk to us is they're ultimately trying to save on SaaS subscriptions. So they have a renewal that's coming round. We've got one client and they pay for a piece of software that's £60,000 a year, right? Their license fees. We've got another client and theirs is 3.4 million in SaaS every year, right? For us, our SaaS cost we save, like I alluded to annually, was like about 5K. But it was what you touched on, that I'm paying for this SaaS and it only does 20% of what I need. It's got loads of features. It's accommodating to the whole market. I'm using 20%. And when you step back and you go, right, I use Monday.com. Actually, all I need is a Kanban style board to move projects along. You can rebuild it with no coding. You can just re-engineer it, have a database, have a view, really simple. And with things like Claude, Gemini, Chat, you can get it to tell you the step-by-step actions to set it up. But now with Claude Cowork and Claude Chat, because it connects to Notion, I can say to it today. So one thing I did recently, just a quick thing, is like, okay, I want to set up this voice of the market database, and it completes the task. So it's not that I even have to go into Notion or Monday and get it to go and then say,
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Paul, you need column A to be this type and this property and all this. I'm literally telling it the job to be done, and it's executing the job to be done. And then I go in and I've got a fully, set up database with some dummy rows and then I can get it to go across Notion and find the information and populate it. And so my job is one of planning and review, not even setting up a database.
There is, and again, from your Web 2.0 days, Paul, I'd be interested, is that what is a good MCP? I think that's going to come out soon. I think that's going to rise, because it's great that you've got it, but what's a good one? And I'll tell you a story from very recently, that in the last month, where we're now deep in building an incident management system in Monday, and the spec is great, the scope is great. It's taking all the paperwork from our health and safety person that gives us all of this stuff in the first place. So I then get that, I then mess with it and work out what actually is needed and put it into the Monday context, and looking at it from a lean perspective, how can we make this easier. But the problem now is I have a perfect spec, I have a perfect endpoint. I say perfect, sorry, I should never use the term perfect, but like, I have a good endpoint which I'd be happy with. But the problem now is the MCP is limiting me. So I can build, so Monday's MCP right now can build boards. I think it can add boards, it can add items, it can do certain bits and columns, but there are certain bits that they've made off limits. So that's where you go facepalm, because you're like, I'm now going to have to go back to the thing you just mentioned about give me the instructions. And okay, it's better, but you know that it could be even better. So then you're like, oh my God, are they going to open this up for me? Why haven't they? There's a wider question of why haven't they opened it up? But are they going? It's
probably just a misunderstanding and trying to hold on to certain things that like they can control.
Because there's
I think one of the things
elsewhere.
One of the things. I mean, this might just be me, but we use certain. I don't mind naming the software. Like, we use Trello for over a decade. We use Shortcut.com.
We use it, yeah.
We use so many different pieces of software at different points, right? And what I realized is there's absolutely no loyalty. So from me, if that makes sense. So like, we use Trello. Clients would onboard, we use Trello. We used to use Slack. Clients on board, and we used to use Slack. And then what we realized is they have limitations. And when it becomes frustrating, and like you just did a face palm, it's at that point I get a step back, a bit like a lean mindset, and go, what do I actually want this to do? And so we're in the process right now of, we pay for some support ticket software, right? And it's not even that expensive, but they keep changing their plans. They keep limiting what you can do on your current plan. It keeps going up, and it gets to a point where you're like, do you know what? I only use 10% of your software and I can build it myself. And when I say build it myself, with no coding, no requirement, no change to the client experience. And so my fear is a lot of SaaS is doing what you've described, which is they're limiting their MCPs. And what they'll actually do is drive a trend of, I don't need you anymore. And even though you've used Monday.com for 7 years, you'll get to a point where, it's telling me how to do it. It's just frustrating because the rest of the world is getting it automatically completed for them.
And as a point there, just a thought experiment, if you could pay for a higher powered MCP connection, would you pay for it, Paul?
100%, because if you think about it, the pace of change and everything else, it goes back to a great post by Jason Fried. Is like, I started my first company because of a company called 37signals.com. They built Basecamp, right? I think, and we use Ruby on Rails because of DHH, and they've got so many like mantras and stuff. But he wrote a LinkedIn post probably about 3 months ago now. I've mentioned it on the podcast, but he said, nobody wants software. Nobody wants the computer. We want the outcome. And I think when people restrict MCP use and things like that, they're no longer thinking about the outcome that you're trying to achieve and how they can make it more usable. I mean, if you think about it, as a result of Claude and Notion, like having an MCP that is limitless, from my experience, what have I done? I've invested even more in Notion, and I've upgraded in Claude. So I've gone deeper into those ecosystems, and we actually use less Gemini, less notebooks than we ever did, because we're currently here. At the same time, if Claude did something tomorrow that like 10x their fees, the principles don't change, but the tools will. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of treating it that I think we're going to be a lot more fluid. We're going to, in the past, if you talk about a company going from somewhere like Microsoft to Google, that would be like, it's nigh impossible. Do you know what I mean? Or if they're going to change their entire desktops from all Windows to all Macs, it would be, it's an unachievable, it's a 2-year plan. Yeah. You can do this migration of your entire business in 2 hours now. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you're not actually completing the migration. Yeah. So when we got rid of Trello, I think it took my project manager, Erin, an hour, and she was like, I've recreated Trello. And not recreated Trello.
What are you doing? What are you using? What are you doing?
Sorry?
What are you using instead of Trello then?
Notion. It's Notion. Yeah. So our dev board, if you imagine going back to Lean, like a Kanban style, so literally has a column of like an icebox with all the tasks by project. It has all the backlog. It has like, work in progress all the way through to review and completion. Those are linked to other databases. Like we have a clients database, we have a projects database. So when you look at a card, it tells you this is the job to be done. This is who it is. You drag it around, that for what we used in Trello, that was Trello. That was exactly Trello. And it took it, and she didn't do any coding or anything. She just told Claude, I want to build this thing, analyze what we use in Trello. So it all starts with being interviewed by AI about what you currently do. And it'll start to help you, and it will tell you if you ask it the question. We can go into that conversation bullheaded and go, we want to use Notion, but we don't. We say, we also pay for all these other software. Are we missing? So, could it be that we should do this in Google with spreadsheets? Should we do this in something? So the task was, we got to a point where we're paying for something and we've realized we're using 10% and they're putting their fees up. And actually we're sick of doing things manually. So we now triage dev boards through Claude, and it takes action. So Claude every day reviews their dev board and triages it based on overdue items and things like that. And then equally, if you wanted to do like a mass update, say, I'm not saying you would want to do this, but say you've got a dev board and everything in Icebox has got a deadline of tomorrow. You could just tell Claude, go and update everything in the Icebox to be 3 months in advance, and that's it. 10 seconds, it's done. Not having to click into each thing. And it's a really poor example, but it shows what an MCP is capable of in terms of it's the API between LLMs and software. And that's basically why it is so important. And when you're facing restrictions like you've described, Craig, it almost angers me, because there's not a technical reason, I don't believe, that they can't achieve.
No, totally not.
It's a commercial decision. It's completely short-sighted, in my opinion.
Yeah, because then
short-sighted.
And I, as I say, I think the value that Monday has delivered us over the years, and and the engagement from people in my business with it. Yeah, I'm very, very thankful that people have done that, and people, my goodness, I'm not the expert in our business at Monday at all, but the value it's delivered with their help has been so good. So when there's never been an irk, there's never been their costing is very, very good. So I think their value to cost ratio for what they deliver for management of business is insane. Don't tell them. But when they started, when I saw that sort of those limitations, and I'm hopeful. I mean, we are early, right? Let's be honest. We're still early in the MCP thing here. This is like month 6 possibly. So I'm hopeful that they will figure that out, because I still want that single source of truth. I still want that audit trail and all that good stuff that comes with that. but I want flexibility. Now, I think that's the thing. I think everybody wants that. Exactly what you said. I
think the one good thing you've got with Monday.com. I don't know if this is true, but my assumption is that they still have an API. So when we're talking about MCPs, we're talking about the easy way of an LLM completing the task for you with no programming. If Monday.com has a well-established API, which I assume it does, and it allows you to do the things that you can't currently do with the MCP, what an LLM will help you do is set up that agentic agent.
It's a good question. Far too technical, but I'm going to go and search.
That's all right. But yeah, there's always a workaround, is what I'm trying to get at. And
yeah,
and also you got to think about with autonomous AI now, which is built into things like Claude, and I know ChatGPT have got it. You are at the point where even legacy software can be automated because it can go and point and
yes,
click.
I don't think it's quite there yet, because
no, it's not there yet. But I mean, it's like, if you're talking about another 2 months, it might be that your solution to this.
So maybe this question, maybe gents, maybe we're wasting loads of time on this question because of what's it's hilarious, isn't it? Well, this is all waste. Let's be honest. Within a month and a half's time.
Yeah, well, I think it's another podcast, and it's in a way here where you're sort of looking at SaaS software, as Paul alluded to, Trello, and you're looking at, why would you need that software anymore?
Well, I think it's valid if you're using 80% of it. But my experience of SaaS is I buy it for the 20% that it does that I don't have today.
100%.
I think talking of time, like Craig, we're 2 episodes in, and I feel like we've only opened the lid. If there's one thing you want a founder listening right now to actually go and do this week based on this conversation, what would that be?
Context: a founder who has done things, hasn't done things. Where are we?
No, let's go with a founder who's sat on the fence and they've not done anything with AI, and they've heard all the amazing things that you've achieved. What would you describe as a starting point?
Look at waste within your business first. Use the 8 wastes first, and then pick one that you think is hard. Then ask your free subscription to something, because you've not paid it yet, because you're not invested, to chat or whatever, and ask the question, focus on this, see what it comes back with. And I think you might find some gold in there, because all you need, and my dad's setting up something. So my dad's sort of, very community minded and very, very, very good at connecting with people and way more. He did physics at university. Both my parents did physics at university. My mum did physics at Oxford. Dad did it at the Manchester, but we'll kind of skirt around that. But the she doesn't have to try, bless her. No. But he's brilliant, and he's very community minded, and he's he's seen the benefits of this, and he wants to help the community. And so he's like, well, we need to set up some sort of community group in our town that helps people with AI. It's the engagement, it's that penny drop moment that you're looking for, where it isn't just making an email for you, it's solving a bigger problem. If you can find those bigger problems and you can see that there's an answer that you hadn't considered that's worth considering, that's where it will start. Within that community group context, I was saying, well, what you need to do is find some fairly standard problems in businesses that haven't engaged yet, and find a way to make the AI fix that really easily. With a standard problem, accounting's a great one, Paul, and then show that to people. So that's why I said he should do that, because without that engagement, without that aha, you're still, and that needs to, as you exactly said earlier on, it needs to come from the top. You need to have that direction from the top.
I think the aha moment is a critical thing, because I think what all three of us have had is we just had that very early on. We, like probably 2002, 2003, we kind of adopted it as an experimental thing because it came from the top as the founder going, this is massive. And then, like you say, I mean, the thing that got me to completely transition my business from being just software development to like AI consultancy is because, you know, if I think back, we had a massive win where I was like, oh my days, this is Pandora's box, well and truly opened. And then your head starts, you know, fizzing with like all the possibilities. And then you have to bring it back down to what you've described, which is just work on one problem. But I love the fact that you've said start with waste. From a show notes perspective as well, what I'm thinking we can offer the listeners is two things. It will work with you, Craig, to find an article that we can share that just explains the 8 wastes, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah,
just to kind of
yeah,
just we'll find an authority site and we'll link that in the show notes. But then secondly, what we can also do is we can put together some prompts that people can use to start to kickstart this. So we'll have a copy and paste prompt that is literally like, I am using the 8 wastes. I want you to ask me these questions, you know, like ask me a series of questions, just so it's cookie cutter. Load up your LLM, run this exercise. Here's a piece of literature for you to understand it. But I think we can do a lot for our listeners to try and bridge that gap, if that makes sense, so that they can get value as well. And honestly, the thread across, you know, these episodes, it's just really get your processes right, you know, anchor it in something that, you know, kind of circumvents all the hype, and let AI take away the boring stuff so your people can do the stuff that only humans can do. So like you said, capture more, waste less. That's my takeaway.
Yeah, so perhaps the challenge we'll leave with everyone listening today is whether you're running a one-person business or a company with 100 staff, spend an hour, we're going to do it, with your AI tool of choice this week. Tell it what your business does, explain your processes, ask it one simple question. Where is the waste? And you might be surprised what it finds, because if Craig's taught us anything today, it's that AI isn't just about creating content or writing code, it's about helping us work smarter. The businesses that thrive over the next few years won't necessarily be the biggest. They'll be the ones that are constantly looking for ways to eliminate waste, improve processes, and free up people's time to focus on what really matters. So, Craig, just to kind of wrap up then, where can people find you and see more about Bex Media's work?
Just head over to bexmedia.net as our site. Find me on LinkedIn. Just Craig Hellen, 2 L's in Helen. And honestly, you know, I am no expert in the lean side of things, but I'm happy to engage and share, because, you know, I'm sure we're taking back to the forum days of when we all learned some stuff back in the day, and those forums of sharing. I still think about that when thinking about, you know, the early days of learning our craft and how much it benefited me. So I think it's everybody's responsibility to help.
Brilliant. So if you've enjoyed this podcast, do us a favour, follow the show, leave us a rating, take 30 seconds and share it with one other founder or leader who gets something from it. That's just how it goes, isn't it, Paul?
Yeah, definitely. It's been really good, Craig. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I know there's loads we plan to speak about. I know that, like, for the listener, it's like we're obviously trying to keep it thingy. So, but thank you so much. Thank you for sharing all your wisdom. And we look forward to keeping abreast of what happens over the next few months and stuff. You never know. We can get you back on.
We'll keep talking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's it. Next week will be episode 28. Until then, keep building, keep thinking, and don't believe everything LinkedIn tells you about AI. So cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.